So, 3 ruinous myths about tabletop game design. Ruinous. I spent a while thinking about the word ruinous. A lot of people, when you ask them, have you tried writing a game? Have you enjoyed writing a game? How do you find the process? A lot of people hit certain stumbling blocks, and they are really common. And we see them a lot, especially where we are, especially as we've had a fair bit of notice in the past few months with Hellboy coming out, with Devil May Cry now being announced. We get a lot of emails to our website, people saying, I've got, an idea for a game, or I want to design a game, or how do you design a game? And these are always really common things that come up. So what's our first one? So myth number 1, designing games and writing rules are the same thing. This is a lie. They're actually 2 very different skill sets. When it comes to designing a game, a lot of people will sit down and start writing a rulebook. And it's in the same way that if you were writing a novel, if your only experience of that is the finished books you see on a shelf, you won't think about things like the drafting process, the editing process, all that sort of thing. So it's the same sort of thing here. Designing games is working out how the gameplay works. Writing rules is figuring out a way to explain that to your players. Now, today we're focusing on designing games. We're not going to cover writing rules today, really. But it's important to remember they are 2 very different things. And it's possible to be great at one and terrible at the other. I know a lot of people who are incredible game designers cannot write rules for toffee. They will write things that are full of ambiguities and loopholes and whatever else. Conveniently, I also know people who aren't necessarily great at coming up with ideas for games, but are crackingly good at writing rules. And these are 2 different things. And conveniently, they dovetail together. So if you've got this skill, finding someone who's got that one can make a really good collaborative partnership. And as I say, design your game first, then write your rules, and we'll cover that in more detail later.
And I also think it's really important to sort of overtly state that if you're not good at writing rules, that doesn't mean you can't write a really good board game.
Absolutely.
Because designing the game is like a whole different creative process. And so I'm not great at writing finished rules, but I write a lot of content for a lot of board games. So that's...
And it's interesting because I've had to work on both these skills, as a professional game designer for several years. I've had to develop both of those things, not even at the same time, but as separate skill sets. And I think you're now focusing on designing games and you're starting to work more on the writing rules side of things. I think it's really telling that there's loads of how to play videos that are really popular thing at the moment, because a lot of board games, they might have amazing gameplay, but really impenetrable rulebooks. Anyone here played Netrunner? Yeah. Living card game, my Fantasy Flight. I say living, it's dead now. It got about a year ago. But it was one of my favourite games. I love it to bits. It's a 2-player asymmetrical card game. If you're interested in game design in any way, get a chance to play it, just because it has some really interesting ideas inherent in it. I'm someone who reads and writes rules professionally, and I read the rulebook 3 times and had no idea how to play. I just gave up. It went back on the shelf. Then I went and watched a how to play video, and it all clicked straight away. It was an amazing game, but the rulebook needed a bit of work. But that was, I think, Fantasy Flight Games, the publisher, they spent a lot of time in the last few years developing, as a company, their way of writing rules. And it really shows. You look at their rulebooks now, they tend to have 2 separate rulebooks. One that is a quick start guide, and then one that is a detailed rules manual. This is all stuff we'll cover in sessions 2 and 3. But yeah, myth number 1, designing games and writing rules are not the same thing. This one's contentious. Myth number 2, ideas are inherently valuable. It's really sad, but ideas by themselves, they're never in a short supply, and they mean nothing until you do something with them. We get loads of messages on our page. I've had this great idea for a game. If you'd like to make it, we can split the proceeds.
Right.
Funnily enough, that one doesn't always fly.
Yeah, ideas are 10 a penny.
Yeah, every person who has ever thought about making games probably has ideas, because, let's face it, that's so key to the idea of wanting to make games. And yeah, basically, until you put them into practice, you will never know if they're any good. And so one of the most important things to do is to do that as soon as possible. And that's what we're talking about today with test builds. It's about taking an idea out of your head and getting it onto the tabletop as quickly as you can. Yeah, don't bend over backwards trying to make a good idea work. Because when we talk about ideas, we're talking about this on multiple levels. We're talking about game ideas, mechanical ideas, ideas for tweaks of things you've already done. Sometimes a great game can be ruined because the designer is intent on including an idea that just isn't right for it, or isn't any good, or doesn't fit, or something. You need to learn how to murder your darlings. It's one of the things you hear about a lot in writing classes. Sometimes, if a game isn't working, look at the mechanic you love the most, pull it out and see if it still works. Now, a lot of the time you'll find it works better. So, ideas by themselves are worthless, and we'll come back to that quite a bit later. Myth number 3, people want to steal your game. Don't trust them. Other designers are evil. They will take your things. You see this a lot online. People in board game design forums and online communities, people will shy away from posting up their game because they're scared that someone else will steal it from them. Now, obviously, there are some things where this applies if you're doing a game based on a license, for example, and you don't want people to see it because they might actually take the license. There's things like that. But generally, don't be afraid to share your game with other designers. Generally, they've got a million ideas of their own, and they're too busy working on those to steal from you. More importantly, even if they do borrow some ideas, it's amazing how 2 games can start at the same point, and with 2 different designers, even with the same designer, they can grow in completely different directions. Think about how many games there are about being a medieval agricultural community, or building a train network, or survival of the zombies, or Cthulhu generally. Well, look at the number of games like Elder Sign, Eldritch Horror, Arkham Horror, the card game. These are all games that have very similar core concepts, but have sprouted in different ways. And also, a lot of the time, games can have multiple concepts, mechanics, ideas that are the same, but still play very differently. Idea theft is not really a massive concern, and it is massively outbalanced by the feedback, criticism, input you'll get from sharing your game with other designers. There's actually an event being organised in Nottingham called Proto-Spiel. There's a worldwide, I don't know if it started in America or in Europe, but whatever it is, it's an event where you can turn up with a half-finished game and play it with other people who are at the same stage and figure out what's good, what's bad, what works, what doesn't. And I think this is the first one in the UK. It's being organised in Nottingham. Originally, it was planned for the weekend of Spiel. Oh no, of UK Games Expo. Sorry. It's currently being.
It's later on in the year now. Yeah. It's going to be October, I think. Now.
Is that the plan?
Yeah.
But basically, have a look online for Proto Spiel Nottingham and check it out. It's a chance to bring your game along and try it out with lots of other people.
Feedback is always important.
Feedback is so important.
And you can't copyright a game.
Yeah.
it's the moment you change one thing, then it's a different game, and this has been tested in courts and
this
stuff.
This is actually a thing. It went in America to the High Court. There was a game. Has anyone here played Bang? It's a dice game about cowboys. So there was a company in China, I believe, who basically reskinned the game. They took all the rules and everything was identical. They changed the theme to be about Chinese dynasties. And it was the rules wording was the same. They took it. They were taken to court, and the court said, "Well, no, you can't copyright a game idea. They changed the picture, the imagery, changed the theme.
It's now a new game.
It's a new game." And I suppose part of that comes from the fact that a lot of games, Scrabble, Monopoly, these are so embedded in the cultural framework you can't really copyright those. But apparently there is precedent certainly in the US High Court. I don't believe there's been a case in the UK yet, but that seems to be the case. You can't copyright games. So don't worry about it. Borrow ideas. It's all a big friendly huddle. That's my 3 myths, and don't let them stop you from making games. So here's one. When we sent out our questionnaires for you to give us information about what you had, what you wanted to do today and stuff, we put up some questions. We said, are there any sort of burning questions you've got about game design? And a few people came back with things that kind of get in the way. How is this thing an issue? Can I still design games even though X, Y, Z? Have a think, not just right now, but throughout the day. After lunch, we're going to go through these. On your desk, you've got some post-it notes. If there are any things that are holding you back from being good at game design, any things that keep you awake at night, thinking, I can't design games because I'm a foot too short, or whatever it might be, write them down and pass them forward, and we'll stick them up on the board. And what we'll do after lunch, we'll go through them, and hopefully we will have already dealt with some of them through the stuff we'll be doing this morning. But also, if not, we can address them then. So Yeah, that's that really. That's my little section at the start about that sort of thing.
Brilliant.
Oh yeah, one idea per post-it note. That's the main thing. So, for example, one of the ones we had on the spreadsheet was, I'm not great at deep level maths and stats and stuff. Is that an issue when it comes to game design? No, but we'll cover that later.
We'll cover it.
Yeah. Any of that stuff, scribble it down, pass it forward. When you have to get a drink or something, stick it on the wall, and we'll come back to those in a bit.
If you'd ever seen me in a maths class at school.
The thing is, there's so many online tools now and so many resources, you don't need it.
Well, and even then as well, a lot of game design isn't really anything to do with maths. Like, everyone seems to get this focus on balancing as a thing, and like balancing is like 10% maths and 90% intuition,
and playtesting.
And playtesting.
I really wish we'd bought the maths beholder and the playtesting goblin.
Oh, I know.
We have a pair of posters on the wall. We have the maths beholder and the playtesting goblin. The maths beholder just says, "Do the maths, don't forget to do the maths." The playtesting goblin says, "Maths is bollocks, playtest it." And they have a little dialogue going back and forth. And the true answer is, do a bit of both and you'll probably work out all right. But certainly when I was working at Games Workshop, a number of times people would say, well, why don't you use points calculators and spreadsheets and this? It's like, well, we do for a starting point. Then we playtest it and then we find out.
And then you tweak it.
And then of course, we can always have enough time to do that sort of thing. It's sort of balance that window. But the point is that maths is only ever a starting point.
Yeah, it's a good way of getting a ballpark. That's it. Right, okay.